Hello and welcome to episode 70 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner, myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, how are we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, fine. 70, 70. That's amazing.
Only 700 away from 770. It's only another 12 years.
For the 70 years since the Rebbe became Rebbe, which was 4 years ago, so GEM, Jewish Educational Media, which produces, snippets and movies, compilations of the Rebbe talking. So they started doing on subjects every Saturday, every Motzei Shabbos, or for every week they pick a subject and they would do one subject. So in the intro they have a whole thing. So they zoom into 770 on the front of the building, 770, and then one of the sevens drops out and they have a circle around the 70 because they in honor of 70 years they're going to do 70 episodes, and they're way beyond 70 by now, but they're still doing it. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. This week's subject was.
Go ahead.
This week's subject was if you start something, you should end it. And I was wondering why they picked this subject. And I realized this week there's a Rashi about who considers, that talks about when somebody does a mitzvah, it's the one who finishes the mitzvah is considered to be the one that really made the mitzvah happen, not the one who started it. So, they were holding by 70. It's a big deal. The years of a person's life is 70 or 80 years. So 70 is a big, 70 of the 7 emotive attributes, and 10, 7, everything is multiplied by 10. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So the big news. So we start with the big news of the day?
Yeah, the rabbi's retiring.
Not yet. Headlines. Well, the reports of my demise are not true. So this has been something that we've been thinking about for a couple of years, about bringing one of our sons or some younger person, preferably one of our sons, to join the Chabad house team. But we didn't really have a very clear plan about what that would look like, how it would work exactly. And when Yisrael got married, so a few months after he got married, we brought up the subject to him about coming to Boston. And then we started thinking about the logistics of how it would work. What would we do? What would the role of myself and Chani be? And the interaction would happen. So there's a shliach, amongst others, that does like mediation. Like say, like any other industry, sometimes you have disagreements or issues you need someone to mediate. So he does this like before a shliach comes out to work with another shliach. So how do you come to terms? Like what kind of contract do you write? So it's not necessarily to negate negative things happening, but just to plan it out in a way that it's the most productive. So, it says about the students of Rabbi Akiva, they died during the counting of the Omer, right? So why did they die? Because they didn't respect each other. So the question is this: Rabbi Akiva was one who says that loving a major principle in Torah is loving your fellow Jew. How could they not respect each other? So the Rebbe explains that their lack of respect came from their intensity of loving the other person. So if you think something is right and somebody you care about is doing something not right, you're going to want to correct it, like to the point of total devotion. You don't want to do it, don't do it. No, if you care, you really want them to do it, to the point that it comes out that you can't respect their opinion. So in Torah study, it was the same thing also. If you think you're right, not from an arrogant point of view, but because you're really convinced that your interpretation is the correct interpretation, then you almost can't tolerate somebody else's opinion. And so by Rebbe's shluchim, that's one of the issues that you can come up with. You see, in the early shluchim, Mesiras Nefesh is like self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice, and you put yourself on the side and you devote it completely to the mission. And putting yourself on the side can mean, like the Rebbe sending people to these far-flung corners of the earth where they didn't have kosher food and have kosher meat and have a school for their children. All the things that we take for granted living in the Jewish community, they didn't have those things. That's Mesiras Nefesh. So when you build something and you have so much self-sacrifice for it, you're very greedy about keeping it the way you do it because you put so much energy into it. And somebody new comes and says, "Oh, I think we should do a little bit differently." Like, you can't do that. No. So it's not from a bad place, but it's specifically from being in a very good place. And this is the way it has to be done. And the thing with Mesiras Nefesh is you can devote yourself completely and spend days and nights, whatever. Like I remember one guy said he was going to work with another shliach, and the shliach, the guy who was there before him, said, "Would you mop the floor on Erev Shabbat if there's nobody else to mop the floor?" He said, "No, I'll just hire somebody to do it." Now, of course, in your own house, if there's no one else to mop the floor, you mop the floor. Okay, if you want to hire somebody because your time is more precious than mopping floors, kol hakavod, you can do that. But the bottom line is the floor's got to be clean. So if there's no one else to do it, you do it yourself. In the summer camps that are, now the summer camps. So Lubavitch camps were camps that the Rebbe encouraged them. They're like the most famous is Camp Gan Yisrael. There's one in Montreal. There's one in Detroit. One in of course, in New York, the first one. And then there's a girls' camp, Camp Amuna. And so the director of Camp Amuna, I believe it was him, when he see a piece of paper on the grounds, he'd tell the kids, pick up the paper. This is the Rebbe's camp. The Rebbe's camp. So it's not garbage on some other property. It's the Rebbe's camp. And so after I heard that, I came back and I was cleaning, sweeping the floor, of the basement before Shabbat started. And the little piece of paper, who cares? And I think, no, it's the Rebbe's floor. It's the Rebbe's Chabad house. So that intensity is amazing. But you can't pass it off to somebody else. You can't say, you can demand Mesiras Nefesh of yourself. You can't demand it from somebody else. And that's a very sensitive subject. You have to keep that in mind when you're hiring somebody else. Anyway, so we did have somebody who just helped us, mediate, talk through what he's doing and how we'd work together. So the plan is that he rented an apartment, Baruch Hashem. They rented it today, even though he rented it before she saw it.
See, that feels like the wrong move, but
No. I went there and I FaceTimed with them, so she got a photo. But yeah. So they got a little apartment on Thatcher Street. Thatcher Street is like 2 blocks away from Dexter, and 2 blocks away from McGannis. So it's right off. It's pretty much West Campus, and that was the idea to be on that side of the campus. He lived there. It's walkable distance to come here for Shabbos if needed. And he'd have he'd do Shabbos Friday night in his house, in his apartment, so you can invite students over there. It's closer to them, establish a relationship with them, and then other bigger programs like Hanukkah, Purim, Sukkot, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, will be done here in the Chabad house, and he would get to know students. He'll be like the face of Chabad on campus. Although it's crazy because
are you saying that you're not the face of Chabad on campus in Boston?
So whatever. I'm in therapy.
Are you gonna have competing tables now? Competing tefillin tables, one on each side of Marsh?
Right. You go on the west side, I go on the east side.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, there's more than enough room for 6 tables on the BU campus. No, but the thing is, there's students that are coming back and they say, "Oh, Rabbi, I can't wait to see you after the summer." I'm like, no, So yeah, we're going to keep up. I'm going to keep my presence there and with the kids that I know, of course. So that's the exciting news. Yisrael and Zelda are moving to Boston. I think next week they're moving. Meretz Hashem. Got the apartment, set things up, and they're doing a fundraiser today. Whoever's listening, they'll say, "Oh, if they hear it tonight, it's still okay. You hear it tomorrow, it's okay too." And in fact, it's okay whenever you hear it. You can always send money. It's very simple. Chabadwest.org. Oh, there we go. That's why Seth is the producer, because he's amazing. A new era for Jewish BU launching. Chabad West, building a brighter. Yeah, great. 1 hour and 5 hours left. And full disclosure, we're taping this at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, so this goes till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock tomorrow night, Thursday night. But remember that Chabadwest.org, you can contribute.
Already almost halfway to the goal.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem.
It's sitting at 44% complete right now.
Oh, okay, guys, let's kick this up. I'm talking to you, no one's even seen this. Whenever you see this, it won't be 44% anymore. It'll be much more. But still, the goal is only there as it has to be filled in. But as much as you send, it'll be fine. It'll be great. And so,
So
yeah,
how do you balance this then? What's the deal? Like, are you? I mean, you're not taking a step back. You're still going to do everything that you usually do, right? Or are you dumping stuff on Yisroel's plate during the week, or how does everything get changed?
I have no idea. So the general outline is that he'll be tabling on campus. Um,
What are you going to do all day then? You're just going to be sitting around bored in the house?
if only.
Connie's only going to put up with this for so long. At some point, she's going to be like, "Go with your soul and go on the
Go,
table.
go
Get
get
out
a
of the
job. Go get a job. No,
house."
I think what's going to happen is that as a result of him being here, there's going to be more activities happening, and it'll be
Mm.
actually a greater. And that's very serious. A new mind, and that's one of the things we spoke about. New ideas, a whole new approach. Just a fresh mind with new ideas and different ways of doing things. I think that'll really build things up. So I'm totally not worried about that. There's enough students from last year that I know that are eagerly waiting to come back and to engage with Chabad. So yeah, I'm fully cognizant and confident that I will be very busy because he's here, not in spite of him being here. Okay, so that's the news with that. And that's a big deal. It's wonderful, wonderful work. And the fundraiser has been going very well. And for all the people that contributed, it was very nice. A lot of excitement, a lot of excitement. Anybody that sees it is very excited. You're getting alumni comments all day. It's beautiful. So Tisha B'Av, on Tisha B'Av, we tabled. I said, I got to get out there and put on film with people on Tisha B'Av in the afternoon, of course. So there was a ball game. So I called my partner. It was Benjamin Shapiro. Is that his name? I don't remember his name. Jonathan. Jonathan Benjamin. I was right. His name is Benjamin. Jonathan Benjamin Shapiro. So we put a table across the street, where the on the Brookline Avenue, where all the fans go by. And we were there for over an hour.
Mm.
And you know how many tefillin we got?
Well, let's think about this. How many pairs of tefillin do you have?
Zero.
Really?
Nobody wanted to put on tefillin. Nobody. And there were some Jews that came by. No. And I realized that when they're rushing to the game, it's like so out of context. They aren't going to do it.
Mm.
But this one family came over and said that they were Jewish, and I think the father wasn't Jewish, but the two, I think it was a second marriage or something, and the kids and the wife were Jewish. But they say, but now we believe in Messianic Jews, believe in Jesus.
Right.
And so I started talking to them and trying to, knock some sense into them. And there was this one kid, a bar mitzvah boy, so he was standing right in front of me, and then the father's on the side, one on this, on one side, that. And so when I'm talking, and I'm like sort of talking to him, and I'm trying to just make it a very simple case that you got to put on film, you got to keep kosher. You can't come along all of a sudden and dismiss all that stuff and throw it away. So in some way, I felt maybe that was the reason we're there. Not that we convinced him or anything, or changed anybody's mind, but you plant the seed. It's all about planting seeds in people's minds. Sometimes you'll get a response, sometimes you don't get a response. I was on Newbury Street on Sunday. Listen to this. And this guy comes over and says, "Oh, remember me?" I said, "What?" "I went on Birthright with you in
Oh,
2001. That was like the first or second, I think it was the first year we went on Birthright." And he tells me his name, and I didn't remember him. And I said, "Okay, let's put on tefillin." And he said, "I can't." And I grabbed him by the arm. I said, "What do you mean you're not putting on tefillin? I put it every day on the bus in Birthright. You put on, you're gonna put on, you have to." And he did it. And I was shocked at myself. I never strong arm, literally strong arm the guy.
mm.
I'm gonna put on tefillin. How can I put on tefillin? And then he says this to me. You haven't changed since then. You look exactly the same. Like, are you out of your mind? I didn't say that to him. I just like, okay, whatever. It's so funny. People, you look exactly the same. Like, yeah, of course, of course.
Well, there's a photo. I saw a photo earlier today of. Did you post on your Instagram story
Yes.
with?
That was because Yisrael dug up that picture. It's a picture when he started putting on tefillin at the yeshiva.
Mm,
And so so a bunch of kids, a bunch of guys from BU went over for that occasion. So I used that. Yeah, it was a fascinating picture.
I don't know how well this is going to come across on camera. Actually, that comes across pretty well.
Yeah, so
But yeah,
we have
I
on
mean, look, the rabbi looks basically the same. There's just a little bit more gray in his beard.
just a little. I said to him, "Well, if you only know how I felt." So I want to tell you this about going out on Mifsayim and then trying to get people to go on tefillin. You come back and nobody put on tefillin. Okay, so you might feel discouraged. So two things. First of all, you were there, you did the effort, so that counts. Number one. Number two, you don't know how you affect a person. They might, you remind them that they're Jewish. They go home. Who knows what's going to happen? And here's the third thing. When I was like 15 years old, living in Borough Park, I had something with my foot. I had to go to a doctor and like get a bandage changed, whatever. And his office was in Flatbush. We lived in Borough Park. It happened to be that this guy's father was also a doctor who lived like 2 blocks away from our house. And his father was really old. And he was younger, but I still remember the father's house. Like it was like this, I don't know, it's like an old person's type of house. It's everything was in place. I just had this feeling of being old. Anyway, so so at one of my appointments, I brought my tefillin to him because I brought because it's a date. It was like a Sunday or something. He said, he was Jewish. You come over on Sunday. Don't worry. Come to my father's house. I'll see you there. I brought my tefillin. He didn't want to put on tefillin. So I was 14 then. So I came back. I came home, and I told my father, this man didn't want to put on tefillin. I was like really just, dejected. He says, let me tell you a story. He says, I think it was before the Rebbe was Rebbe. Yeah, before the Rebbe was Rebbe. And the Rebbe sent him to speak to a certain person about Yiddishkeit. The guy was a scientist of some sort. And I think there's a video of my father telling me how the Rebbe said to him that the way you speak to people, you say to him, like, where's God? So he said, the Rebbe pointed to the table. See this table? People used to think that the table was actually solid. Like a table is solid. You bang on it, solid. But we know with the neutrons and the protons swimming around over there, there's more empty space than there is actual matter. So it's not really. You think it's a solid, but it's not really solid. It's not solid. It's just the way it works. It seems that it's okay. And the same thing is also. So basically, the point being, what you see is not what you get. Anyway, that was that. So he did, and he said, and then my father said, at the end of the story, this guy took his own life sometime later on. So he's saying, see, even the Rebbe paid so much attention to this guy and asked about him, and sometimes it doesn't. You put the effort in, and you don't get the result that you want. Which reminds me of another story, and this has to do with last Shabbos, which was the 6th day of Av, or the Shabbos before, the week before, 2 weeks ago, was the 6th day of Av. What Tisha B'Av was this week or last week? What's today? I'm so confused. It must be like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was last week. It was Shabbos 2 weeks ago.
You're getting me so confused here. Today is the. Oh, come
16th
on.
of
What?
Av.
Yesterday was Tuvav. Yeah.
Right, so it's
So.
16th. So last week was Tisha B'Av. The Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. So what happened was that I was in summer camp then in Montreal, and I was a staff member. And me and two other guys decided to go for Shabbos to New York. We drove to New York, and on the way back, we drove to the Catskills to go visit camp there, and then we're going to drive back to Montreal. So it was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was driving, and I fell asleep. And the car, It's not funny. Stop laughing.
It's actually hilarious, is what it
So and
is. So what you're telling me is you had issues staying awake even when you were young.
of course. And so, can you stop laughing? This is a serious story. Mute yourself. So, the car turned over a couple of times. No, now he's not laughing anymore.
I'm laughing harder because I figure you were obviously okay.
No, it wasn't okay at all.
Are you looking at me right now? Are we speaking right now?
Yeah, listen to the story. So the
Yeah.
car turned over a couple of times, and it came to rest on the passenger side. It wasn't big; it was a small car.
Mm.
So when I stood up, I was basically standing. So immediately, I just other people came because they're driving and saw the car turn over. So people stopped and they got us out of the car because you never know what's going to happen. And soon after that, an ambulance came, and from all the people that were hurt, one guy in the back seat, nothing happened. The guy in the front seat hit his head, hit the windshield, but minor. And me, I got a cut over here and a cut under my nose, and so my face was basically full of blood. And I was back, I guess I hit the windshield or the steering wheel. So they were making the ambulance guys arranged, took out a board and so people lift up and so one person was holding my head and it was a woman. So I turned to my friend and I said, does a woman have to touch me? And he said, Shasha. I realized, man, just shut
You
up.
were mad at me for laughing.
So anyway, so I get to the hospital and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they sew me up. They sewed up on my head and under my nose here. They sewed that up, and then I got off the table, and when we left the car, I obviously took my tefillin out of the car. I said to the doctor, I said, who was Jewish, I said, "Would you like to put on tefillin?" And he said, and his answer to me was, "Do you want to see what you look like?" I said, "Yeah." He took me to a mirror. Now my shirt was open, and it was everything was my tzitzis, my talskon is covered with blood. My face is like bandaged and stitched, and like oh. So sometimes you don't get successful and you want to get him to do him. And I thought later the doctor must thought I was nuts. Like he's about to put on film with me in the emergency room when I'm like looking like that. So anyway, so the point is the roundup all this. So that was a big miracle, so the first thing we did after I got out of the emergency room was to call my friend in New York and ask him to write to the Rebbe and tell him what happened. And my lips were swollen. So I said we were in a car crash, and da da da, and then I stopped like to breathe. And he told me later, he said that his heart skipped a beat because I started we were in a car crash, and like what happened? And I said, and everybody's okay, but there was a pause there, and that like freaked him out. And so the Rebbe answered in Hebrew were there Svarim, Sifrei Kodesh, holy books, and a tzedakah box in the car. So that's a good. That's something that encourage people constantly to have Chumash Timel and Tanya or just general Svarim and a tzedakah box in your car. So anybody listening, put that in. Keep your insurance policy, but put a sefer, a Chumash, a Tilum, a Tanya, whatever it might be, and a tzedakah box into your car. So there you go. So Baruch Hashem for that. Baruch Hashem for the kindness of Hashem. And that's that. So when I went to Newbury Street on Sunday, which we always talk about this, Hashgacha Pratis, Hashem runs the world, Hashem runs the world, Hashem runs the world. So there's nobody helped me to go there, and it was raining early in the day. I didn't know if I should go. So I finally went there. As I'm walking out to go to my place, I turn the corner and I see who's sitting there. A BU kid. His name is Jake Eldad. Jake Eldad.
I know him actually.
So
Yeah.
I would go with him regularly on campus until he finally got him convinced him to get his own pier. He brought it from home, and then most days he put it on himself, whatever. So he's sitting there like with three younger people, and they said, "Oh, that's my uncle. These are my cousins." I said, "Oh, go come meet me at the table." So I said to him, he said, "Do you understand how Hashem had to orchestrate that I should meet you? You should be sitting here at this spot, and I should come late and have to walk, and where I found a place to park, and like everything was just amazing." And so he came with his three cousins. They all put on film, Baruch Hashem, and that was just a great kickoff for that tabling. And of course, when the birthright kid came by, that was like, it wasn't a kid anymore. Now he's like 20 years ago. He's must be like 40, right? 40 something even. Yes, 40 years. Yeah, 40 is over 40. 2001 was 23 years ago.
Okay, but if he was 18 when he went on birthright.
He wasn't 18. He could have been 18. Even then, he'd be over 40. Anyway, right? 23 plus 18.
Yeah, no, yeah. If it was 23 years ago and he was 18, yeah.
Yeah, so, and he probably older. But that was so beautiful that he remembered. And some other young woman came over, a girl. She graduated almost 20 years ago. No, probably 15 years ago. And she said, "Oh, do you remember me?" "No." I remember you. Stay in touch, I'll remember you.
Is that how you say it too? When people come up to you and say, "Hey, do you remember me from 15 years ago?" You just go, "No."
I always feel bad because they feel bad. And they always say, "Yeah, you meet so many people, you poor thing, how do you remember anybody?" And finally, we had this great guest for Shabbos, Amir Rasowski, graduated from MIT. And now how many years ago? Yeah, 20 years ago, because he came with 5 children, Kanai Nahara, 3 girls and 2 boys, yeah. So the boys were 8 and 9 or 10, and they stayed over in the Chabad house. So whole Shabbos, these boys are running up and he lives in Israel. His wife is Israeli. His kids are Israeli. So these little Israeli kids are racing around the house the entire Shabbos. And I was plotzing. It was beautiful. But this kid went to MIT, and I used to learn Tanya there with them. It was great. So the thing I remembered him was for Pesach, we got this convection oven, right? So when we bought it, it was you don't have to kash the oven anymore. It was amazing. But it had a timer on it. Now the problem with the timer is it's like a 12-hour timer, a 24-hour timer.
Mm.
I needed to go on Yontif. Shabbos you can't put into the oven, but on Yontif, if you put stuff into the oven and the timer turns it on, it's okay because you're allowed to cook on Yontif. So it's not a problem. On Shabbos, it's a problem. If you have your oven on a timer and you put food into the oven, that's problematic. But
so do you have to, if it's Shabbos right into Yontif, do you have to put it in before? Do you have to put the food in before Shabbos and have the timer turn on after Shabbos? Or can you have the timer turn on during, the timer will turn on after Shabbos and you could put it in?
The timer turn on anytime, whenever.
Okay.
They have your lights. Lights go on and off on Shabbos. That's not. If you set a timer before Shabbos, it's not a problem.
But if you have the timer on the oven and if you had the timer turn on during Shabbos, you would have to wait until after Shabbos to put the food in.
Right, correct, right, exactly. So that's how I do it. So I could put food into the oven before Shabbos starts and have the timer turn off the oven in the middle of Shabbos. It's not a problem. And then the timer will turn it on either before Shabbos ends, it doesn't even matter, or after Shabbos ends, and then the food goes in after after Shabbos ends and Yontif starts. That'll be this year. This year, Rosh and Sukkot and Simchas Torah are going to be Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. Get ready. So the problem is that I need to have it to work on the timer, not on their timer, because their timer just shuts off. So I remember calling myself, "You're from MIT." I said, you need to disable this timer for me, but I want to make sure the oven still works. And so every time I look at the oven, I think about him. So it was and that was a very, and he remembered that. He remembered doing that. It was beautiful. Same thing. A personal interaction with actually something happening sticks in your head for a long time. So the point is, when you do a mitzvah with somebody, they're going to remember it. They're going to remember it. Whether it's fixing the clock on the oven, whether it's putting on film with somebody 30, 20 years ago, You do a mitzvah with somebody, it has an effect. You may not know about it, but sometimes you remember it, sometimes they remember it. But that's the important thing. Keep on doing things, even doing effort. If you don't see the fruit of it directly, you may be the cause eventually somewhere down the line that'll have an effect. And finally, I wanted to say that last week's interview with Mendel Matasov was last week. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was incredible because I had no idea that like his grandfather and him and his father, I knew his father, like the whole thing was just really incredible and I thought it was I got responses from people that also that knew him that were like, wow, like such a, 3 generations of devoted to the Rebbe, but under very different circumstances. But the one thread that runs through is you do the mission, you do what you got to do, whether it's from Russia to Morocco, Morocco to Madison, you just got to do what you got to do. And we're getting ready for Mashiach to come. We got to do what we got to do. It's after the 15th of Av, so it's already time we can wish each other a Shana Tova Matuka, a happy and healthy and sweet new year. Yeah. Get into it. Get into the space. Rosh Hashanah is coming. Elul's 2
Isn't
weeks.
Rosh Hashanah not like super late this year? Isn't don't we have another at least 60, 70 days?
No. Rosh Hashanah is exactly the same days from Tisha B'Av as it is every year, every day, every
I
year.
mean, late on the other calendar, isn't it not until October?
Who cares what the Goyim are doing? Of course, because we're 2/3 of the way through August. So Rosh Hashanah is in 5 weeks. It's going to be
Yeah,
in
I
the
guess
middle
that
of
is only like
October.
a month and a half. Yeah.
October, yeah. Get into the mode, baby. Rosh Hashanah is coming. Mashiach is coming. Do what you got to do. Do your best. Hashem will take care of the rest. Hey, that's a nice motto. And and all of us together, we'll do what we got to do. We'll reach out to other people. Keep upbeat. And watch out. Mashiach is on his way.
Amen. And with that, thank you so much for listening to episode 70 of the
Seventy.
Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.